What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing another restoration, but this video is going to be a tutorial. We're going to be covering a topic that you guys have been asking for the past few months, and that's going to be midsole stitching. Every time you guys ask me for a video on midsole stitching, I reference you to John Manala's video, but he does it on a pair of Jordan 4s. You guys have been asking for a dunk video, and we do mostly dunks on this channel, so I'm going to be making a video for you guys today. So for this tutorial video, I'm going to be using a local client's shoe, a 2002 pair of Black Supreme Dunk Lows. The uppers on this pair are in perfect condition, barely any creasing. Elephant print is super clean, but soles are completely hardened. Look at that crack. These are super hard, slippery, no longer wearable, but we're going to change that. So since this video is going to be focusing mostly on the midsole stitching, I'm going to pass through the beginning steps, basically removing the soles, laying down the glue, prepping the soles and everything, re-gluing them. We're going to show that, but I'm not going to be narrating it. We're going to be passing it through clip by clip, more like a cinematic experience. And then I'm going to go in depth for the midsole stitching. So the shoe that we're going to be using for this swap is going to be this 2007 pair of Dunk Lows right here. They have the same pattern, dunk shape, 100% stars, because you know, us old sneakerheads, we care about the stars. The only problem is they are super yellow. We're going to take care of all that yellowing right here. You guys probably can't see it. It's going to look a lot worse in a little bit. But yeah, we're going to take care of all that yellowing. We're going to prep these. We're going to swap them over. We're going to make those 2002 Black Supreme Dunk Lows 100% wearable again. So enough talk, you guys. Let's go ahead and get into today's restoration. Let's walk through how I'm going to be prepping these so that they can be glued onto here. I'll see you guys at the midsole stitch. Alright you guys, I am back. I hope you guys enjoyed that little montage of the whole prepping and re-gluing process. Right now, it's a day after we bonded the shoe. It's always good for you to stress test the shoe a day after so that you allow the adhesive to fully cure. Right now, I'm stress testing it to see if there are any points of separation, and it looks like everything is good, so we are ready to move on. So I'm going to use the Supreme Dunk Low sole that we just took off, the hardened one. As you can see right here, is fully cracking. I'm going to use these first to demonstrate to you guys how we're going to do the midsole stitching, so you guys get a clear visual that is not covered with the upper of the shoe, so that you guys have a general idea of what's going on. So we're taking a look along the inside and outside of the midsole, and you can see that there are tiny perforations where the old stitching is going to be. We're going to use that as a guideline, and we're going to use our sewing awl. Our sewing awl is going to be the main tool we're going to use for sewing a midsole because we don't have a machine to do it. The sewing awl is the best tool by hand to be able to do it. Basically, the sewing awl is going to go through, penetrate these holes where the perforations are in the midsole, and that's how we're going to get our stitching through. Alright you guys, so the materials that we're going to need for this midsole stitch are going to be a sewing awl with a straight edge. We're going to need 2 types of strand, preferably 2 different colors so that you could tell between the two. We're going to be using the black strand as the outer and the gold strand as the inner. So the type of thread that we're going to be using is called the S-Lon or Superlon Tex 400 beading cord. Tex 400 is going to be the size. I don't like to keep it on the spool when I do a restitch, so I usually cut it to length. I usually go about 2.5 times around the midsole, and that's going to be how much I'm going to use. So the direction that you stitch is completely up to preference. I like to go counterclockwise, so I put the thread in through the left side, and if you like to go clockwise, you're going to feed the thread in through the right side. So the first step after you've decided which direction you're going to stitch is going to be to thread the needle. It's going to take a few tries if you're not used to it. So if you take a look on most shoes coming straight from the factory, the stitching is going to start at the midfoot. It's either going to be on the inside or the outside. I prefer it to be on the inside so it's less noticeable. So right now we're going to be starting our midsole stitch. As you see here, I put the sewing all through the midfoot, and now I am going to be pulling the strand out. If you're going counterclockwise like I usually do, you're going to pull the right strand out, and if you're going clockwise, you're going to be pulling the left strand out. After you pull it out, you're going to make a knot with the strand and pull it so that the knot is on the midsole. Basically pull it out until it stops at the knot. This is how you're going to start your initial outside strand. We're then going to move on to the next counterclockwise hole and repeat that process, and now we are ready to anchor our inside strand. So now we're going to open up the black strand so that there's room, and then we're going to take our secondary strand, the inside strand, the gold strand, and we're going to loop it inside of the black strand and make a knot. That's going to anchor it to the inside of the midsole so that it does not move. We're going to tighten the knot, and then we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to pull the black strand out until it stops at the gold knot. So we're now going to repeat this process moving to the next hole, but without knotting the strand. As you see here, I put the sewing all through. I pull it out a little bit so that it reveals that slack so that you could pull the right strand. So I pull it a little bit further out, the black strand, so that there's some slack, and then you just pull the gold strand right through the black strand, just loop it, and then after that you don't need to knot it this time. Just pull it through, and then you're going to pull on the black strand and the gold strand at the same time so that it tightens to the midsole and is flush. So I hope that this gives you guys a really good representation and explanation of how midsole stitching works. Basically, the inside strand is going to be the key part. It's going to hold your outside strand in place. Your outside strand is going to go through the midsole and the shoe, but the inside strand is where most of the stress is put because it holds everything together. So that is the fundamentals of stitching a midsole, guys. Basically, you're going to rinse and repeat. You're going to do this process all throughout the midsole. It's going to be the exact same tedious process over and over again until you are done stitching it. So right here I'm going to be demonstrating a common problem that happens when you are restitching a midsole. Sometimes when you have the uppers on the shoe, when you get toward the toe, it's hard to see inside there, so you don't really know which strand you're pulling on. If you're going counterclockwise like I do, you're supposed to pull the right strand, but sometimes you're going to pull the left strand on accident, and this is what's going to happen. The strands get tangled up, but it's not really a big deal. You're just going to have to redo that stitch. You just pull the strand right back out, everything's going to come back out, and redo it, and hopefully you're going to pull out the right stitch this time. So this right here, guys, is going to be the hardest part of the midsole stitch, which is going to be the toes. I call this section 8 Mile just because it's really a struggle, and just mainly because of the curvature. So basically, when you have the uppers on the shoe, this area is so hard to see. You can't really see what's going on in there. You're going to get your sewing all twisted, you're going to pull out the wrong strand, you're just going to keep messing up. There's not much room to work with. Basically, this area, the shoe, is where it's going to be the most time consuming. So you guys are going to see me demonstrating how to stitch this part of the midsole right now. You're basically going to put your hand into the uppers, palm side up. And you're basically going to have to feel for that needle. You're going to have to feel for the needle, you're going to pull it out, you're going to tweak it a little bit, just so that that strand gets exposed so that you know that you're pulling on the right one. You're basically going to have to either use your index or your middle finger, whichever one's easier, and you're just going to feel it through and then grab it with your thumb. It's nothing that really you could teach, it's just more about method and whichever one's easier for you. So once you guys start stitching midsoles, you are definitely going to understand how much of a struggle this is. This is why I call it 8 Mile. So you're going to mess up on this section a lot. I know I still do. It's going to be the most time consuming part. Your hands are going to hurt. But the finished product is going to be the most rewarding thing, guys. So you just have to get through this curvature and everything else is smooth sailing. So guys, I think we are now ready to start tackling a real shoe. As you guys can see here, I'm working on the Black Supreme Lows. I'm starting at the midfoot right now. As you see here, when you push through with the sewing awl, it's going to puncture through the midsole and the shoe. You're going to see that needle come in, Pull it out just a little bit so that they're slack, and then you're going to pull that strand all the way through, and then we're going to knot it. It's exactly like working with just a midsole, guys. There's just an upper on here now. And that is going to be it for the first stitch. We're going to pull it out now. It's anchored. We are now ready to move on to our next stitch. And nothing new here, guys. We are now going to anchor in our inside stitch. I'm using black for the inside this time. We're going to make our knot and then pull it through. And here it is one more time so you guys can see my work process when I am stitching the midsole. So as you guys can see, midsole stitching is very tedious. You're going to do the same thing over and over again. You're just going to try and get everything nice and tight, and then I'm going to show you how to end the stitch. And here it is, guys, the very last part of the midsole stitch. You're going to put your sewing all through the original, the hole that you went through. And then, except for this time, we're not going to loop anything. We're just going to pull everything out and cut the excess. Nothing's going to slip out. You guys don't need to knot it again. Just cut out the excess, let it hang. That's how the factory comes. And you guys are done with your midsole stitch. So very last step is to throw in that insole, guys. It's going to cover up all the loose thread, make everything look so much cleaner. So your end product is going to be a nicely swapped shoe with a professionally stitched midsole. This is going to last so much longer than a shoe that's not stitched. So please don't do your sole swaps unless you're going to stitch the midsole, guys. Last step, we're going to clean the shoe and we're going to wrap everything up. Y'all know what time it is. The restoration is over. Let's take a look at the final product. Alright you guys, that is going to be how you restitch a dunk midsole. This is going to apply to Jordan 1s, Air Force 1s, Jordan 3s, Jordan 4s. Basically anything with midsole stitching, this is how you're going to do it. I'm going to have a list of the things you need to restitch a midsole in the description below. I hope you guys found this video to be helpful, and I hope that it helps you to restitch your own midsoles. If you have any questions regarding any type of midsole stitching or restoration, feel free to DM me on Instagram at Shotsbymikey. The midsole stitching was done on this pair of Black Supreme lows right here. This is for a local guy named Jeremy. Super cool dude. They came out awesome. We cleaned up the uppers, gave these new life with a brand new looking sole, refreshed the leather, and I don't know if you can see this, but we patched up the tear on the inside lining. And yeah guys, with a quick stress test, we can see that everything is bonded on here. Everything is on tight. There is no more separation. Super clean glue lines. Take your time whenever you guys are doing sole swaps. It's not an easy process. It's very tedious. It's a lot of prep work, but if you prep it right, you'll get it right the first time. Alright you guys, the time is now 3:07. I gotta meet Jeremy up at 3:30, so I gotta head out right now. Let me know in the comments what you guys thought about this video, whether or not you found it helpful or not. And if you did find it helpful, please give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel and you do like this type of content, please hit that subscribe button. And yeah, I will catch y'all next time. Peace.